Good afternoon, everyone. As usual, we'll be given a couple of seconds to allow most of you guys to come in before we start the business of the day. However, how have you guys been? This is noon. How is your day going? Those at work, how is it out there? Those at home working remotely, hope things are moving on smoothly. Down here in Philly, it's kind of chilly, rain this morning, but of course, we'll bless God for the win. I can see a couple of names on my attendees list. You guys are welcome once again. I think I'll just take it off from here, even as you guys comes, keep joining us for the presentation. Good afternoon once again and welcome. For those of you guys that are joining us for the first time, my name is Gagba Esahaya, and I'm the training coordinator of the Temple Small Business Development Center. The Temple Small Business Development Center helps small business start and grow. We offer free one-on-one consulting and a variety of low to no cost webinars. We are proud to be part of the nationally accredited network of the Small Business Development Centers, which has over 1,000 networks across the state. We are here this afternoon for a webinar on for your referrals workshop. A copy of the PowerPoint and a link to the recording will be sent to all the attendees. Being a webinar, all the attendees have been muted. However, we always encourage you guys to drop your questions on the Q&A and the chat box. Today is indeed a good day. Please allow me to welcome Mr. John, even as he takes over the flow for the presentation. Mr. John, you're welcome.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for joining us today. And it's been my pleasure for, at least a couple of decades to work with SBDCs across the country. They provide such an amazing resource and benefit for entrepreneurs and startups and even longtime businesses alike. So it's awesome when I get to support one of the various chapters. If you want to connect with me, if I say something that seems smart, you want to connect with me over this, that's just my email address. And you can find pretty much everything we do at ducttapemarketing.com. Let's start off by figuring out who's here a little bit. I speak to a lot of audiences about the topic of referrals. And one of the questions I'm always curious about is, I will pose to audiences, what percentage, and this can be your first use of the chat if you like to dump it in here, what percentage of your new business do you believe, or if you're just getting started, do you believe most small businesses, what percentage of their new business do you believe comes by way of referral? So drop that in the chat if you like. And again, without kind of pausing on this too much, go ahead and put that in the chat if you like, what percentage you think. I will tell you that I've asked this question for at least 10 years to many, many audiences. And generally speaking, the number comes out about 70%. There's 80, there's 50, there's 50, there's 80. So 80, yeah. So this group is right in line with what I generally see when I talk to small businesses. But here's the follow-up question that I always ask. What are you doing to amplify the fact that you as a small business are referable? And generally speaking, it's, well, referrals kind of happen accidentally. We don't really do anything to make them happen. And so that's that fact that you're referable is something that you can't fix necessarily with some referral hack or some referral tactic. But the fact that you are referable, that you deserve referrals, is something that we can definitely amplify. I'm going to cover 7 pretty quickly, so I'm hopefully you take some notes, and I'll and obviously they're going to have the recording after this, so maybe you can go back and listen again because I'm going to go pretty fast. But I'm going to cover what I call the 7 grades of referral fuel, 7 types of things that I think you can do. Now, don't try to go through this and say, I'm going to do all 7 of these. In fact, in some cases, they might not apply to your type of business. Some of them are more applicable to, say, B2B businesses than to B2C businesses. So just maybe think about landing on 1 or 2 ideas from this today and taking some action on that. I want to deal with what I hear, before I get into them, I want to deal with what I quite often hear, and that's this referral mindset. There are some people that know they deserve referrals, know they should get referrals, but they don't like asking for them, or they feel like it's begging somehow. Here's another statistic. This was actually from a recent survey Texas A&M University did. They polled 2,000 consumers, and 83% of them said that they had a business they love so much, they'd be happy to refer them to others. 83%. I mean, we all do, right? You probably have a handful of businesses you're thinking, oh yeah, I love them. I'd tell anybody, go there, use them. Now here's a guessing game part. You guys jumped in on the chat before, so we'll ask you to do it again. What percent do you think of those 83% who say they have a business they love so much, what percent do you think actually do refer that business? Again, put it in the chat. And this one's always funny because I'm going to warn you that it is a low number, but quite often people even guess lower than it is. So I see a 10, I see a 5, I see a 2. I just do see a couple 30s. Well, the actual number in their survey, at least, was 29, which to me suggests there's a huge opportunity somewhere between over 50% of a gap that we can close to get those businesses or those individuals that love us to actually refer us as well. Here's why referrals matter so much. If somebody who is an ideal customer of yours tells their friend that they should hire you, they're quite often and also an ideal customer. It's much more easy to attract ideal customers from ideal customers. It certainly shortens the sales cycle. We've all gotten that phone call where somebody says, yeah, so-and-so said I should buy from you or do business with you. When can you come down? I mean, boom, you didn't even know they were looking. Typically, when somebody is referred to you, they're not coming for a deal, unless, of course, that's what your offer is a great deal. But typically, they actually expect to pay a premium, and they're willing to pay a premium because that referral removed a bit of the risk involved in searching out for and working with a new business. It definitely can magnify the lifetime value of a client. The concept of lifetime value in marketing is that if somebody buys $100 of product or services from you today, but they remain a customer for years and every month make that same purchase, well, the lifetime value of that customer is not $100, it's whatever that worked out to, $3,600. So a referral does that as well, because now that customer that's worth $3,600 has also referred 3 new customers to you. The lifetime value of that customer is now well over $10,000 if you're doing the math with me. So that's why this topic is so important. But here's what people, but asking for referrals makes me feel like I'm desperate. Anybody on here today thinking a little uneasy about how do I go to my customers and tell them I need more business from them? Well, the biggest thing that you have to do is change your mindset. And the way that I find is to change your mindset is to, and I just made this up, there is no such thing as a customer success quotient. Essentially what I'm saying is, what value do your customers receive when they work with you or when they buy your products and services? If somebody pays you $100 and gets $300 worth of value, or $500 or $10,000 worth of value for $100, then aren't you doing them a disservice by not allowing them to introduce that same value to a friend, neighbor, or colleague? So if you get very, very sure about the actual value you deliver, it changes the entire dynamic about asking for referrals, because now what you're doing is actually giving a client the opportunity to also give a friend, neighbor, or colleague that same value. We use a framework for marketing on the customer journey that we call the marketing hourglass. And it's our approach to overall framework for marketing, how we have to guide that customer who doesn't even know about us all the way through these 7 stages: know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, and refer. And the reason I bring this up here is that, while refer is the last final stage, if we think about it, it should be the ultimate destination of all of our marketing, the ultimate focus. If we started thinking, what would it take? What kind of experience would a customer have to have? What would all of our marketing need to do? How would we build trust? All of that would lead up to the point that we want 100% of our customers to refer us. It starts changing the idea of how we think about marketing. So start thinking about the end in mind, that instead of thinking about how do I get somebody to click, or how do I get somebody to read or to share something that I've posted, or how do I get somebody to my website, start thinking about how do I get more of my customers to actually refer new customers to me. A happy customer is your greatest source of lead generation. Let's start there. All right, so jumping into the 7 grades. Number 1 is what I call referral offers for every client. We should just all have at least 1 or 2 ways that we are consistently putting out there to the world that we are referable, that we have a referral program, reminding people that we love referrals. We're so appreciative of referrals. It might actually just start with, in the sales process, you start telling your prospects, hey, we know you're going to be so thrilled with what we agreed upon today that we're going to come back in 90 days. We're going to make sure you're thrilled. And then we're going to ask you to share that same feeling of being thrilled with 2 or 3 friends, neighbors, or colleagues. That might be something that you start doing with every sales conversation and clearly every client. But there are also, I call them really the types of referrals. There are direct offers, which is basically you saying, look, if you refer, I'll do this. There are implied offers and tangible offers. And here's what they look like. So a direct offer is, as I said, if you do this, I'll do that. So a lot of times people default to thinking, okay, if you send me a referral, I'll give you $50 or $1,000, whatever it is. And that could be a nice incentive, but it can also be a disincentive. And so what I love to do is think about direct offers that really are very aligned with your brand and that people actually feel good about sharing. Because if somebody tells their neighbor, you should definitely do this, most of the time they're doing it not to get $50. They're doing it because they really believe that this will help their neighbor. At least I believe that. So here's an example. We had a remodeling contractor that we worked with that was doing that. I mean, they did very high-end work. And so if somebody referred them, they were actually giving the person $1,000. Well, it turns out about half the people were put off by that, or they said something like, just donate it to a charity. I mean, they weren't referring their friend because they wanted to get $1,000. And so we said, well, what if we do this? What if we change the offer to refer your friend and we'll give you a carpenter for a day who's going to come out to your house, spend the entire day with you, just knocking out all those little handyman kind of things that we all have in our houses. And all of a sudden, that was something people got excited about, because frankly, for some people, that's actually harder to find or to get done than getting $1,000. So it turned what was a bit of a negative into a very positive. Plus, it was so connected to the brand. Implied offers are something where you are actually putting something in your client's hands that just make it easy for them. They're not even referring you. They're just sharing your story or their story working with you. The same remodeling contractor we started doing when they would do a big project, they'd take photos before, they'd take photos during, they'd take photos, professionally shoot photos afterwards because they were wanted them for their website and things. So we said, what if we just started creating this nice coffee table kind of photo book of a project? And so now on certain types of projects, they would actually at the end of the project say, oh, by the way, here's a commemorative, storybook of your project. And everybody does a huge remodeling project. They have their friends over to look at what they've done. Well, now they can go through and say, look, here's what it looked like before. Remember how ugly that, brown was or whatever? Here's kind of the construction, the chaos. And then, here's where we ended up. And so this book actually does some soft selling of the remodeling contractor because it's just a tangible thing that they could put in people's hands. All right, the last one is what I call a tangible offer. And the idea behind this is come up with something that makes it so easy for somebody to refer you. Because a lot of times people want to, they just don't remember or they forget, or there's no motivation that makes it easy for them. So we do a lot of clients where we'll actually have them create gift certificates. They'll send to all their clients once a quarter and say, look, if you know anybody who could benefit from this, here's $100 off of their, they're going to get $100 off of their next service. Now, in some cases, we actually tie it back to, and that client who referred is also going to get $100 off. It depends on your business model and your client relationships. But the biggest thing about this is by having something that somebody can hand across fence or take over to the next office and give to somebody. Just makes it dead simple, easy for people to refer you. And plus now people have something that feels like it has real value. Couple keys to these. I love it when both parties can win. So in other words, give your referees not just a $50 or whatever it is you're going to give them something they can give away. So both parties, the referee and the referred, get some benefit for doing it. If you can tie it to the brand, that's awesome. And this has to be something that's consistent. Don't do this once and think, oh, I didn't really get much out of that. It's going to happen when you stick with it consistently, because you may be in one of those types of businesses where people only think about your product or service every 2 or 3 years. So you've got to stay with it so that when the moment's right, somebody actually can refer you. Couple things you might think about doing, build a landing page, build a page on your website where you can actually explain your referral program and send your customers to, or give them a page they can send prospects to that treats them to a great referral experience. If somebody wants to refer you, write an email for them. Here's how, here's what to send to your friends, neighbors, and colleagues. You might even think in terms of creating some marketing education around referrals. When somebody's referred to you, that's a special lead. Treat it like a special lead. And then find some way to publicly thank anyone who sends a referral your way. A lot of people have newsletters, e-newsletters, and just even a shout out to, hey, here's the 3 people that referred business to us this month. The beauty of that is you're showing appreciation to the person that did it, but you're also showing the world or everybody else on your email list that you're referable, that people do talk about you and refer you. So it's a great message all around. All right, number 2, hopefully you have, maybe it's 2 or 3, maybe it's 100 customers that are already referring business to you. I mean, they love you, they talk about you, and it doesn't have to be customers. I mean, this is some cases it might be strategic partners or just people that aren't customers, but they love what you do. Create some sort of special program for them. I call them champions. One of the things that we know is that people who already refer business, I mean, they're just wired to do it in most cases. And we can get even more out of those people than we can just trying to motivate somebody who that's really just not who they are. Appreciation. Again, a lot of times the question I get asked when I talk about referrals most is, should I compensate, or how much should I compensate somebody for referrals? I will tell you, appreciation goes a long, long way. Just doing things, a sincere handwritten thank you in many cases is far more than what other people are doing. So don't always default to that idea that you have to pay somebody. Bringing people together. One of the things that we do with clients is we get them to bring their clients together for lunch. If your clients are business owners, if your clients are a certain segment of the consumer population out there, in your town, in many cases they actually just love getting together. Having exclusive events just for those referral folks, having contests for those referral folks, maybe having some sort of special or exclusive content for them, or even inviting them to be kind of quasi, mentor advisors. So anytime you have a new product or service, they're the first ones who get to hear about it and give you feedback on it. In many ways, building a tighter community of the people that are already referring you is in these kind of champion programs is a great way to turn those people into, super connectors for you. All right, now this one works, I will admit, this is a very, very potent one, but it works best in not only B2B, but in professional services. So like accountants, lawyers, that kind of ecosystem of professionals that many of our clients, if you're in that business, or even in your own world, you probably have a team in some cases of professionals that you rely on to help you do certain things. Well, the idea behind this is that, I sell marketing services. And so everybody that I work with, in many cases, they've hired a management consultant or an executive coach, or they have accounting professionals. In some cases, they have advisory board members. So when we create a brand plan for somebody, we'll actually ask our client if we can reach out to the other professionals they're working with, purely with the idea of educating them on what it is that we're proposing from a marketing standpoint. Because my belief is that if all these other professionals know where we're going to spend marketing dollars, how we're going to position the company, maybe even how we're going to add new products and services, they're going to be more prepared to serve our mutual client. So by reaching out and spending the time to educate these folks on what our strategy for marketing is going to be for our shared client, what happens is, as I said, they're very appreciative because nobody else is doing that. It makes them actually more valuable to our shared client. And I can just tell you from experience, some of those people will turn into tremendous referral partners for you because that approach is so unique. As I said, this one, probably more tailored to that professional service provider in a B2B environment. All right, now this one applies to really anyone who has team members, strategic partners, vendors, employees. One of our most untapped resources quite often are the people that work for us in terms of generating, or at least telling the world, their friends, neighbors, their community, all of us have, about our company, both as customers and frankly, in today's environment, as employees, because the environment for hiring has gotten so tight. So if you want to think about your staff as a referral source for both customers and hiring, are you teaching them your marketing strategy? Are you creating tools that they can hand out to people? Even simple things like, here's social posts that you can share about our company. And then having rewards for internal. The nice thing about internal is it's really easy to do contests and to talk about it, in your weekly staff meetings. We've going back to my remodeling contractor there, they were doing the same thing. They were actually giving employees referral bonuses if they could bring in a new employee. And once we started teaching the hiring process, once we started making the reward something a little more fun, like those green egg smokers that cost, like $800, all of a sudden people wanted to get much more involved in the process. So again, give them tools so that that they can actually make it easy. That's probably one of the core principles of this idea of referrals is the easier you can make it for somebody to refer you, the more likely it is they're going to. All right, strategic partner network. This is a very, very potent one. To this point, I've mostly talked about client referrals, internal referrals. I mean, these are the people that know you, have worked with you. I mean, they're obvious resource or obvious place to go to think about referrals. But the much bigger universe are those non-competing businesses who also serve your same ideal client. So think in terms of building those kind of relationships as referral relationships as well. And you might actually, I'm guessing, have one or two strategic partners that you've worked with in a similar fashion. But I'm talking about something maybe much more formal or much bigger. So the idea behind this is, if you look at your customers today and you say, what else do they need? Obviously, it's very dependent on your relationship with them, what you do with them. I talked about that professional services environment. Obviously, they have other professionals that they work with. I talked about the remodeling contractor. Well, they have lots of other things that they do in their homes that need to be worked on. So, those are kind of the logical, others products and services that somebody who's a client of yours might need. So think in terms of what are all the ones, or what are the core 5 or 6 other services. And then your goal is to then develop a best of class team that if one of your best clients came to you and said, do you know anybody who does X? You'd be able to say, yes, I actually have a great relationship with somebody I can introduce you to. So right off the bat, just doing that makes you more valuable to your existing client, because you know how it is. Once we develop trust with clients, they'll ask us for anything. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And so we make ourselves more valuable by being able to say yes to that. So your goal in building this partner community is, first you've got to identify, who are those 5 or 6 core strategic relationships I could have. Now you might know by reputation, or you might have actual friends that are in other businesses that could be strategic partners. But I tell you, the best place to go is ask your clients. Who else do they love? Who do they use for their accounting, or who do they use for their legal work, for example? Because you're going to get recommendations or referrals essentially to your network or your partner network, but you're also going to have something in common with that person. So you're going to be able to reach out and say, hey, our mutual client said maybe we ought to talk. So you identify, and then I'm going to show you a process we use for recruiting or getting into conversations with those folks. But then the real key in a lot of cases is, we all have people that we've met at some networking event and we've said we ought to work together sometime, right? I mean, I'm guessing experience tells me most of you have similar relationships to that already, but nothing ever happens. So what do we do to activate that and build kind of a formal, ongoing, consistent platform? So we use a tool. So let's say you've identified your 5 or 6 relationships. Rather than reaching out and saying, let's get together and see if we have any synergies or something like that, we have a tool, and actually these are some of the tools and forms that we use working with our clients. I'm going to show you at the end. We've put them together in a little workbook that you can acquire based on the fact that you've been at this presentation. So you can get these tools, but let me show you what we do. We use a tool. It's called the Perfect Introduction. So on the right, you'll see that blank form. It says, how would I spot your ideal client? So the idea behind this is these tools are tools that you can use. I mean, on the left there, it's a completed one. You could use to actually better explain to, say, your customers, how they might refer you. But in recruiting strategic partners, what we do is we'll actually write them a letter, something we call the perfect introduction in reverse. And it's great if a mutual client has told you, oh yeah, you ought to talk to these people. So you write them a letter and say, our mutual client said we should be in conversation because we believe, this is you saying, we believe that we have customers that could benefit from services, and we'd love it if you would teach us the best way to refer you to our customers. We've included a blank form, this is the how to refer, that will make it easy for you to share information about the best way to refer you. And by the way, we've included ours, that's the left, completed, just to give you an example of how to do that. So you see what we've done here? Instead of reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, we'd love to teach you or tell you about our business, you're basically inviting them to tell you how they could refer you, how you could refer them. So obviously, don't put anybody on this list unless you really believe that. You may not know it for sure because you haven't worked together, but if make sure that you really believe that they probably do something. Now, what's that letter is going to do is, in my experience, is about 50% of the people you send that to are going to say, sure, we'd love to teach you how. Let's get together and we want to learn about your business so we know what makes a great referral. So you've given them a much better reason to engage than the simple let's just get together. Now, again, these forms and all the tools are in a workbook that I'll share at the end. Once you get some responses, here's the key though. Have something in mind that you can do together. So if you have a podcast, or if you do video interviews, if you have a blog that you write about certain things, and your clients could also use information from your strategic partners, offer to let them write guest content, or you offer to do guest content for them. Maybe create an event like this where you could both invite your audiences to and share information where you'll kind of co-market to each other's folks. Obviously make referrals, rating and reviewing each other. Maybe if you're all 3 in the same town or something, you have 3 or 4 strategic partners where you put on a half-day workshop. Everybody invites their clients, and so you get some crossover from each other's clients, but it's a really great, valuable day then for the people who attend. So recruit those strategic partners, but have something that you can actually do with them. And let me give you one. I built in the early days my business almost exclusively by reaching out to people who I thought were great strategic partners. And instead of saying we should work together, I basically said, I have this webinar, I have this workshop, I have this ebook that is great information for, in my case, small business owners. I would love to come and for free present it to your audience. And in many cases, they were happy to have that education. They were happy to have that value add for their clients. So they would invite me to do that. It was completely unpaid, but what it did is it introduced me to their entire audience. So there are many things you can do along this strategic partner idea. In fact, a lot of times when people are just getting started, that's the approach I tell them. Go find somebody that you can add value to who already has your client, already has your audience, and that's the fastest way to jumpstart your business. You know, co-marketing with other businesses, certain types of businesses, the logical extension of the bridal, you know, that entire ecosystem. So if I'm a cake maker, or if I'm an invitation creator, or if I'm a flower shop, you know, I should have the entire ecosystem as strategic partners, so that when somebody comes to look at a dress, I can say, here's a caterer, or, you know, here's a wedding planner that you might work with. Some things just go great together. That I call the peanut butter and jelly. More times than I can remember, we have put together an HVAC contractor, a painting contractor, and an electrical contractor. And every time their technicians were going into a home, they would say, here's your bill, but here's also here's our two great partners. And because you're a great customer, you're going to get 10% off with our two great partners. Well, all three of these businesses are doing the same thing, effectively tripling the exposure that each of the businesses get. And the last thing is, you know, you can really have a lot of fun putting together some things that don't usually go together. So I had a financial planner who did tax prep with his clients every year, pretty much at a certain time of the year. And so he would bring in a couple massage chairs, or from a massage therapist that was a strategic partner. And while people would wait, you know, part of what they would get is this shoulder massage. And so, you know, they would go then out in the world and say, you won't believe what my tax preparer did. So it gave them a nice little boost in conversation and reason for people to talk about them. And frankly, the massage therapist got customers out of doing that, you know, for an afternoon, you know, once a year. Again, this is one of those that probably works better in certain environments, but you know, maybe some of you belong to BNI or to other networking groups. Why not create your own? Because you know, the problem with all of those types of groups we belong to is they're very dependent on who's there, and you don't control who's there. But if you want to start your own type of networking club, this can be a tremendous way for you to generate referrals. There's an example I wrote about in my last book that was a real estate agent, and she was very good at social media. She was very good at marketing. So she had a lot of real estate agents that would always ask her to share information, train them on how to use, you know, some of these new tools. Well, she decided that she wanted to move to another part of the country. So she was basically going into a new town, didn't know anybody, didn't really have any connections. It was going to be very hard for her to build her real estate business. So she started a marketing club for small businesses because she felt confident she could talk about it, and frankly, you know, add value. Just bringing people together was part of the value. So she started bringing small business owners together. There would be a marketing topic. It was just a breakfast. Eventually, it grew to about 200 people. She started bringing in other experts to talk about very specific topics. She didn't sell marketing services. That wasn't even anything she offered. But because she facilitated this group and created so much value for the people that were in this group, guess who they called when they wanted to buy or sell a home? Her business in that new town exploded in about a year when she showed up really knowing nobody. So could you do monthly breakfasts? You know, could you teach small business topics like I gave in the example? You could always, if you take my last idea of creating a strategic partner network, you can actually tap them. They would love to come and be part of your network to share their expertise. There are all these tools out there now. You don't actually have to do it in your own community. I mean, there are tools like Meetup and Eventbrite and, you know, LinkedIn and Facebook groups that allow you to facilitate, you know, maybe the entire group, or even as you later on, you know, in between meetings, you know, want to keep the engagement high. This is a group you might check out that does this, did this very thing. Derek Coburn and his wife Melanie own a networking group called Cadre. he was the same thing. He was a financial planner, hated the traditional networking, and so he decided to create his own. He sold his financial planning business a couple of years ago, and now Cadre is really their entire income. All right, the last one is something that we have used. Now, obviously, I'm in the marketing business, so a lot of people will say, well, duh, of course you use this. But I'm telling you, if you have clients who are business owners who also want clients, if you can find a way to start bringing those folks together under the topic of referral generation, they will turn into an amazing referral network for you. So I don't care what your business does or sells. If you started putting together referral masterminds, and the information's out there, you can take what I've shared today and turn it into teaching. I wrote my second book. It's called The Referral Engine. There are plenty of books out there that will give you an entire roadmap or blueprint to teach other businesses how to generate referrals. And the idea behind this is that if you're teaching somebody how to get referrals, the natural human tendency is to reciprocate in kind. In other words, to make referrals to you. So don't get intimidated by this idea. If you wanted to do some sort of monthly referral training with your clients, I mean, you could actually position it as, hey, we all want to grow our businesses. Let's get together and just once a month talk about that. I guarantee you there's going to be some people in that group that'll start working with each other. You can do it in one-on-one. You can do it in group. I have some people that have put these together, and they actually, because they're all business owners coming together with the idea of referring, they actually, even create some compensation pools and point systems around, who does this and who does that and what they get for making an introduction versus somebody becoming a client. So there's so many ways you can handle this. And I just, share, if you're going to have a monthly agenda, I mean, it can be like this. I mean, you meet, everybody talks about the success they've had this month. You pick one key lesson that you talk about for 20 minutes. Maybe one person in the group says, hey, here's a challenge I'm working with, help me work through this. Maybe you share some referrals and then you're done. I mean, and once a month, I'm just telling you, no matter what your business is, if you have the right clients, if you have the right folks that want to come together and be motivated to do this, this can be a really potent way for you to generate more referrals. All right. Those are, I went through pretty quickly as promised. Those are the 7 grades of referral fuel. So I really will entertain. I don't know if any questions came in yet. I guess I should have given you a warning that I was wrapping up, but I'm happy to take questions, or I know that you've been monitoring the chat as well. So what do you have for me?
For now, it's just the normal, response they actually give when you actually ask 1 or 2 questions. Of course, from what I can see here, it's just a percentage and the percentage. But of course, this goes to our wonderful attendees. It is time for question and answer. So if you have any question, remember I did say at the beginning of the webinar that if you have, you're free to drop your questions on the Q&A or the chat box. And of course, everything will, you will surely get the answers. So again, this is the right time.
Yeah, and you can even feel free to even share maybe something you're doing that's worked or hasn't worked. I mean, the group can benefit from that as well. I do want to just share one more thing. While people are formulating any questions they might have, I mentioned some forms. That URL on the screen, dtm.world/refer3. If you go there, or if you're one of those people that likes to order your hamburgers using the QR codes now, like we all do, you can just snap that QR code and it'll take you to the page where you can pick up some of the forms that I talked about. It's there's about 20 of them, I think, in all. So it's a quiet group. Maybe I gave them too much to think about.
Okay.
Got an awesome.
Yeah.
Hard to make a question out of that, but thanks, Regina.
Yeah, and just a quick one. This also goes to our wonderful attendees. I just posted a 30-second survey about today's webinar. Remember, we at Temple SBDC, we always cherish your feedbacks, even as it helps us to improve on the services we provide to you guys at a low cost. So kindly take 30 seconds of your time to help us fill out the surveys. I can see a couple of questions dropping in. We've got one on the chat box. Sorry, we have like 3 on the chat box and one on the Q&A.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take Trisha's question first that came in, and she said, can you discuss more on point number 7 on as how to gather masterminds? So I think there's 2 very distinct ways to do this, Trish. You can, if you have clients today that you think are, it helps if they're businesses, of course, because businesses are going to be more in need of referrals. So if you have clients today that are businesses, that's a great starting point. And just talk about bringing them together. The whole idea is we're going to all go on this journey of learning more about how to generate more referrals for our business. Maybe we'll refer each other, as a side benefit of that. Now, if you're in one of those businesses where all of your clients are consumers, I mean, that's really not going to be applicable to them, then you're probably better off trying to think about potential strategic partners with the same idea that they are other businesses who serve your same ideal client. If could you put a group together with the primary intent, being referrals? And that doesn't mean that everybody's going to be in the group. You've probably seen some of those groups where you show up and you have to show up with 3 leads, to give to somebody. It's really going to be more about how can we work to generate more referrals for each other. So some of that could be what I taught today. I mean, you could teach people how to create offers. I mean, as part of it, it doesn't have to be you're in this group so you will refer. I'm just telling you, people will because of the structure of it. So those are the 2 ways to really do it. And it's just good old fashioned, hey, I've got an idea. What do you think? Would you want to join this? And you kind of see where it goes. Jennifer says, if you're just starting out, how do you handle competition in your area? Well, Jennifer, that's a really big question that I could go a lot of directions. The one I'm going to choose to go is learn from them, read all their reviews. If they've got Google reviews, which every business has today, read all their reviews word for word. What are people saying good? What are people maybe saying is a negative about an organization? So learn from them, but don't worry too much about them. Build your own approach, your own position, your own promise, to solve a problem. So if you are just getting started out, like I said, you can learn from competition, but think about recruiting or trying to find a way that you could bring value to some other potential strategic partners who already have the audience that you're trying to serve. That's one of the greatest ways to get a competitive advantage. Instead of trying to go head to head with a competitor and say, oh, we're cheaper or we're better, get introduced by a strategic partner that already has your ideal customer. All right, Alex said, do you have advice for someone selling a product? Well, Alex, everything I talked about, again, if you're B2B or B2C, that might differ, but everything I talked about, the referral offers, all of those things work. When you're selling a straight product, depending upon the price point of it, in a lot of cases, affiliate type of things, or there's a tool we use and recommend all the time for especially for e-commerce businesses called Referral Candy that kind of automates the process. So you've got a customer who wants to refer your product, they get a special link that they can refer, and the software automatically tracks who made the referral, where it came from, was it a successful purchase. So there's a lot of tools, I think, for that I would look into to maybe automating some of that and recruiting maybe an army of maybe more affiliates than partners. All right, next question. How much should you offer in terms of referral amounts for customers or employees? I get to use my often used consulting answer. It depends. If you want to talk percentages, a very traditional 10 to 15%. Obviously, if you're selling a $10 item or a $10,000 item, that's going to dictate a little bit of where you're going. I wouldn't just default to that. Sometimes that can be a great incentive. Depending upon what you're selling or what your service is, sometimes that monetary reward or promise of a monetary reward isn't the best incentive. I want to get my clients to naturally refer more. Don't we all, Jessica? But I also have an audience that I would like to refer that haven't used me yet. What is attractive offers to get referrals? So a couple of things I talked about today, I think might apply in your instance. One is every new client you get in the sales process, start talking about the idea of referrals, and not just I want referrals. It's, we know you're going to be so thrilled with what we agreed upon. I'm going to come back, and at the end of 90 days, we're going to do a review on the results you got. And then at that point, I'm going to allow you to introduce me to 3 people. I will tell you, as simple as that sounds, and you can, you know, change how long the period is or how many, I mean, mix it up any way you want. But that approach alone, I can tell you, will change the dynamic in your referral conversations, because they will have said yes already. It's not like you're going back and just saying, okay, look what we did for you. It's time to refer us. So make sure that you're thinking about that. And again, I'm saying all these answers without knowing what your particular businesses are. But I think that right off the bat, you know, for a lot of people is a great place to start. All right, it looks like I've gone through most of the questions. So obviously, they will, as soon as we say we're going to end the question and answer, more come in, of course. An anonymous attendee said, loved your book. So thank you, anonymous attendee. Janice said, your examples are great. Do you have an example for B2C? Well, actually the example that I gave, especially in the direct offers and the remodeling contractor, that remodeling contractor, they're all their customers are B2C. So that carpenter for a day for them, having the little gift coffee table book, sending out gift certificates, doing co-marketing. I mean, those are all great examples as far as I'm concerned that definitely apply to B2C.
Yeah, I think we have 2 from the chat box.
Okay, got it. Yeah. The one I'm not sure, Jessica, what you're asking me. It just says he QR code is a series of workbooks. Oh, so the QR code, I think you left out there. Yeah, I didn't realize. I guess that goes to a page that has all of our workbooks. I thought it was just to the one, but just find the one that's on referrals, Jessica, if you're interested in it. It says, do you have advice for diversity and inclusion consulting? My system went out when you were explaining. Diversity and inclusion consulting. So Regina, it would probably depend on who your clients are, but I'm guessing that you are providing that as most consultants, as a professional service to another business. And so I think the example for you that would be perfect would be to actually ask those clients that you work with if the consulting or the plan, in some cases, that you come up with for that business you're working with, that you could actually share that with the other professionals that they work with. In some cases, you'll have the relationship, you can do that. In some cases, maybe you're working departmentally and you know, that might not be something they're open to. But if you're working particularly with a CEO or a you know, a small business owner, for example, that to me would be a great, it's what I call client ecosystem balancing. You know, by your virtue of reaching out to those other professionals and saying, look, here's the plan we worked through with them. You know, I just want you to understand it, because you'll be able to, you'll have a better chance of being able to work with our shared client. But I guarantee you those professionals will then start asking you questions about that work that you're doing for them, and ways that you might be able to do it with them even, or certainly with others. All right, I think we've exhausted the questions again today. So shall we wrap it up?
Oh yeah, I will just give it like a couple of, let's say, 1 minute or 2 to see if anything will come up. But even as we await for any last minute question, I just want to use this opportunity to say a big thank you to all our attendees. Thank you guys for keeping it a day with us. And of course, Mr. John, thank you for a wonderful presentation. I love the way the whole presentation flowed, and I love the different types of questions that actually came up on board during the presentation. And of course, last but not the least, I also want to use this opportunity to thank each and my fellow colleagues at the Temple SPDC for their usual support and cooperation. You know, without them, we wouldn't have been here, and this webinar wouldn't have come into existence. Like I said a few minutes ago, I will be given like 1 or 2 minutes to see if anything will come up. If nothing comes up, we'll just wrap it up for the day. I think we are all good, because from what I'm seeing here is just thank you, and appreciation from most of our attendees.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks
Yeah.
everyone. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to develop your businesses.
Yeah. Thanks everyone, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.